I'll put one here for Nikki and she's gonna come. I don't know if she is or not.
We are live and where I'm sharing this. Oh,
It's a coffee table book right here. That's what that is.
that is a coffee table book. That, you only look out for y'all.
So my Tracy Willett coffee.
Chair, you are in charge. We are ready to go.
All right, so this is a regularly scheduled meeting of the special committee.
Which one do I have to close?
YouTube,
We are live.
that,
Where I'm sharing this.
that one.
That one.
It's a coffee table book right here. That's what that is.
That is a coffee table book. That, you only look out for y'all.
Mute us for a second.
Tracy Willett coffee.
Chair, you are in charge.
Not a robot. Okay, we're back. So, so this is a regularly scheduled meeting of the special committee on the future of a consolidated Parks and Rec facility. And around the table, we have Parks and Rec Director Tracy Willett. We have committee member Broughton. Joe. Okay.
Nelson. Yep.
Okay. Roman. And Mary. And Fish. Burrow. And John and myself. And we will start with a discussion of the updated renderings.
As we talked about before, our consultant and their team has put together some updated renderings of both interior and exterior spaces. Deb put this together in a PowerPoint for us. So we'll kind of walk you through that, and to Deb and Joe, as I go, please stop me as we go to add anything along the way. From this, Barry Dunn is already working on cost estimates and pro formas, and part of that pro forma discussion was in the fees that we'll get to here in a second. So this is the plan design that we are familiar with. Have been familiar with throughout the process that you all been involved with. Not much has changed from it, but we needed to confirm this before we could get to some of these other.
Tracy, is CHA the architect?
Yes,
Okay, so, and who is that, CHA?
CHA, it was part of the original Barry Dunn team that did the feasibility study. They were part of the team that did the original proposal to us for that. I believe they're out of Mass.
But they're under Barry Dunn?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so Barry Dunn has brought them on
Yes.
board, okay.
And CHA, so initially, the one member of the initial feasibility study team that you're missing was the landscape, Mike was landscape.
Mike Noonan.
Noonan. That was the third piece of that team. For this purpose, it seemed better to focus on Barry Dunn and bring CHA back.
Gotcha.
And we needed that expertise to develop the rendering. That answer?
Yep.
Okay. So here we are in the lobby. This depiction is from the renderings, and we just decided to kind of consolidate it into one place. Obviously, we talked about very open, very inviting, a lot of light from around the edges. But
Yeah, so as you enter, and as you see on the left, people will see through the windows, the fitness area, but then there's also sitting area for people, a little area for people to, work on their laptop if they're waiting for the children and stuff like that. And then the stairs to go upstairs to the offices and to the track, and there is an elevator back there too.
And how does this compare to the current lobby at?
it's close. It's close.
I say that just to sort of re-emphasize the value
Oh, for
that
sure.
would be added with this.
For sure. I mean, as you all know, you come in and it's a,
You're in a hallway.
you're in a.
There is no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I'll just come with my laptop and we can do a side by side.
Yeah, right. We talked about some of the multi-use spaces, that we're gonna incorporate as part of this plan. And certainly the diverse uses of those, and these are primarily along the front edge.
Number 6
of the
on
building.
the conceptual.
And again, with access to window space and that sort of thing. Certainly teens and seniors, and you'll see the word multi-generational, as you see here in the picture, and we're trying to ensure throughout the process and with you all, that we don't necessarily dedicate a particular spaces to particular needs versus being able to use them for multitude of activities and multiple generations.
So you guys, those spaces are gonna be back in the 7, 8, 9, the blue. So you see that in the plan design. So those are seniors and teens, that area.
Here's the gym. We found a picture of Joe Nelson to include in here, as part of
I think
this.
he made it, so it can't be me.
But again, much like we've talked about in some of these initial plans, we're a community use gym, community activity gym. We're being able to accommodate a variety of uses, athletic contests and activities. And you can see the walking track above. Our experience has been in seeing other facilities and hearing Barry Dunn's feedback. The elevated walking track seems to be the more popular and easier to use for patrons. I mean, you could drop in and still use a walking track, activities going on in the gym.
Tracy, are these, that rendering on the left, is that just generic? And I see the Bangor, our logo, but is that just a generic piece or is that actually from?
That is based on what we've discussed so far.
Okay, so they're actually looking at our space and
Yeah.
saying that this is what it could look.
This is what it could look like.
Yeah,
Has the 3 courts.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, there will be a little bit difference because we're gonna put
Yeah,
like a part.
Because I mean, clearly like the bottom one on the bottom right is a generic.
Oh, for sure, yeah, for
You
sure.
know, so I was just wondering if
Yeah.
they're all generic or if that.
So what we did, what Deb put together for you initially, the large photo here was just that stock photo type.
Yeah,
This came from the renderings that you're gonna see
Gotcha.
later on.
Yep.
We're trying to consolidate it for
Yeah.
using the hour that we all have with you today.
Okay.
Good question.
Yeah, you'll notice the difference on which ones.
Yeah.
go From
Well,
them and then
yeah.
our stock
Yeah.
photos of what we can do in there and what other spaces. Yeah,
These are more stock type photos, although the one on the left came from the rendering.
Yep.
And it depicts, again, that front facing window space, which,
The reason I ask is because all of the ones where you see this exposed grid work and stuff is probably more realistic
Yeah.
than the ones that are on the
Yes.
other side.
Mhm.
The other ones are kind of showing a finished space, which I'm not being critical of this.
No.
I think it's a good thing, but we're seeing two different kinds of things here.
so it's good to clarify that.
Yeah,
It is good to clarify that. Because I believe that's what we've talked about in our meetings with them, that it more like you see depicted on here on the
Right.
left.
got it.
Yeah.
and you'll see later, it's more just about the spaces right now that we're
Yeah.
gonna have. Because they just did renderings on a few of the big spaces, not all the spaces.
Right.
Because we don't know how we're gonna design the small spaces, but the big soy arena, the gym,
Yeah.
that is kind of due to how they're gonna conceptually
Yeah,
build
good.
it.
Anything else before I keep going?
Like those are stock,
Yeah,
okay? It's just what we can do in the
Yeah.
multi-purpose space.
To the question earlier about the lobby, that's our line dancing class at the bottom right, as it's getting used in the Condescating room now,
Yeah, this morning.
this morning, yeah. So again, it goes back to trying to not keep the spaces as multi-use as possible, because that's how it's going to be used each and every day. These again are more stock, no, that's actually the one on the left you took from the
No,
renderings,
no, those are all stock,
those are all stock,
Yeah.
okay. Okay,
but it's the same concept. They're gonna have two, at least two, maybe even three lanes, and that's it. They're gonna have two, but more of a space on each side. So if someone needs to stop, they have room to stop on the side while others are still walking by.
one of the interesting things, we were doing the feasibility study that we talked about while I'm here on this one in particular, and it reminded me of seeing the curtain, using the ceiling to store things like volleyball, basketball, any, those types of things that typically you would roll away or set up, they put in the ceiling to drop in, to drop down to maximize space,
Depending on how fast they drop, that could be another
Yeah.
cardio activity.
Yes, it could be another cardio activity.
No,
You
but
came with
it's-
material today, didn't you?
We've already talked about that. Is gonna be a button.
Okay.
Stock photos here. Our art space is a pretty active space now, so that'd be one of those spaces, and I think we've talked about again. Multi-use,
Mhm.
different types of activities, ceramic, art, that sort of thing, but that kind of does need to be its own space, but again, could be multi-generational.
I love the indoor playground.
Yeah.
And I think that that is a huge value add for, you know, when my kids were little, you could take them to the mall maybe,
Yeah.
or you could, but
Yeah.
there's not, or McDonald's had a play place, so you'd get a coffee and hang out. But there really is a lack of that, and especially for our seasons, I think that that would have a lot of value, especially for those preschool parents, or even just,
Mhm.
you know, teacher workshop days or whatever, that's a nice add.
For sure, for sure. These are more stock type photos, but again, and back to what we're doing now, these are more of the typical of childcare spaces now. Go ahead.
Does your current childcare space also use like that Condescate room that showed the seniors?
We use that for childcare, the room, so interesting kind of sidebar to that question upstairs. And I like to tell the story because it's what we have done to kind of maximize our space down there upstairs. We use for childcare, fourth, fifth graders, Deb.
Second, third, fourth, fifth.
Second, third, fourth,
All four of them.
A number of years ago, there was a dedicated space for the American Legion. American Legion has been in that building, I believe, since we've been down there. Had their own space. We had the lease with them. They came to us a number of years ago. They had grown in numbers and wanted to use a different room. We were struggling for space up there with members and numbers. So we came to an agreement. We took out a wall, changed their lease with us. So if there's an example now of a multi-generational space, it is upstairs where we had childcare in there 5 days a week, and once a month, the staff will turn the room over so the American Legion can meet in the same space. Trying to be as creative as we can.
I just like, you know, one of the things you talk about the multi-purpose rooms, but I think that it might, reason why I bring that up, I don't think it might be obvious to a lot of people how much multi-purpose is happening in the current building.
Yes, yes.
And how we can still have multi-purpose rooms, but to just lighten the pressure to
Yes.
be a little bit more flexible from having a meeting versus
Yeah.
line dancing is two
Yeah.
very different setups.
Oh, for sure.
So I think
And
that's
to your
really
point,
valuable.
the escape room, prime example today. I mean, we put kids in there all the time. And yet it's line dancing this morning, it's the bingo and card games that happen in there. It's used for meeting space all the time. So yeah, to your point, we're changing that room all the
And
time.
having dedicated childcare
Yes.
space will just be better for everyone.
And I go back to your question earlier about the lobby. I mean, that lobby, that entryway into our building now is often a lot of things.
Mhm.
The childcare staff really has no place to deal with issues with individual kids. Often it is that space.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's becoming challenging. Anything else before I continue? So this more depicts, and I think it's a couple of slides, Deb, with the ice piece.
Yeah, but the one on the left is the
Right.
rendering from CHA.
Yep.
And
So this would be what we'd be looking at as a concept for one of the ice sheets. More of the game sheet. Up in the top, you'll see what we've incorporated, and we've talked about this, an open area between the sheets, to allow for what they're depicting here, to allow for possible small team meetings, small team gatherings, and allow for the back and forth viewing between the two sheets. That all seems to be a fairly prevalent option we're seen in other places. And I'm gonna look at Joe. I don't know that is Norway set up like that now? Norway Savings Bank complex in Auburn is what we refer to as a two sheet facility.
Just in my time, the last 25 years, probably the last 5 to 6, now teams come, they do off ice training. Really, at Soy Arena, how it's set up, when a high school team comes in, they're trying to do a little agility and stretching with the public in the stands. So this gives us options with the number of locker rooms that are underneath in between the two sheets of ice, and then also up above, there are spaces that they wouldn't be in front of grandma and granddad and kind of stretching out and stuff.
So are those spaces, would that be like places for guests to see, like if you, like, speaking of like grandma and grandpa, is that like an accessible area where someone could sit if they had mobility issues and couldn't handle the bleachers? Or
Yes, and
or
also,
temperature sensitive, or, you know, I think
press
it's
box areas,
Yeah.
which we really have non-existent right now.
nice.
That will be the handicap accessible, because we have the
Yeah.
elevator to
Right.
get to that area.
So the depiction on the left is more the second sheet scenario.
And it's just a stock, that just shows that there will be bleachers, yeah.
Which is typical. It's more of a practice activity sheet, whereas the other side, as I mentioned, is more for gameplay and that sort of thing. And this is fairly common setup. Mechanics would be able to be utilized together for the ice. And we have talked about in the course of developing concepts, the possibility of the second sheet being a multi-use type surface if we need to, and use it for other things. But certainly our experience so far, and certainly as it goes on, two sheets is a pretty common approach. More typical stock concepts to at least forward it to you, what we're looking at, what we could keep moving forward. Referees to be a high maintenance group, so they need their own space.
And that's dual referees for basketball, referees for hockey and stuff like that. Okay.
Especially with padded seats and
Mhm.
really nothing up that. More of the same here. As you heard before, here is an opportunity to really grow this type of activity. We do a pretty good job currently with balancing, learn to skate, and the figure skating community with the hockey groups and their learn to play programs. We have worked well together, and that is a program that has just grown for us over the years. And we have balanced it well with the youth hockey group and their efforts. Often, learn to skate can progress to learn to play. So I think I've thumbnailed that pretty good.
Yes, also excuse me, I will add, learn to skate's primarily a weekend activity. It's hard to find time with 3 high school hockey teams with the youth teams. So there's a lot of potential activities and programs that we're scratching the surface of. If we had 2 rinks, now we have a couple evening hours. And really, hockey and figure skating were set up where there's nothing the figure skaters to aspire and kind of move on. I've had a number of people actually have to kind of move the area when they need the 3 days a week practice times and things like that. So I could see our programs growing in a real positive and good way with having the 2 ice sheets. It just gives us more possibilities.
Again, based on my parent experience, my kids didn't learn to skate because it was the same time as ski lessons. So that was what they ended up doing, but if there was like a weeknight kind of a thing, an after school activity, would be great. Even for parks, childcare for after school kids to have that experience, that'd be great.
So I believe we're at the big, oh no, we got the outside, so this is the lobby again, it gives you a full perspective, again. Much more inviting space, clearly.
Yeah.
The stairs, up the upper level, and the other piece to this is the admin offices are kind of at that upper level, as well. So here we are outside. I did skip back. The plan diagram is the same one that you've seen for a while. Herein is, kind of the drone view from Griffin Road. And the ice and the gym, the childcare, the front spaces that we've talked about, all kind of put together.
That's amazing. Like I am picturing pulling out of Hudson in the north entrance and seeing that and being very, very proud of my city to see
I
something
appreciate
like that. Like, I think just because of what's the square footage when you take Sawyer and the Armory? This has to
Currently-
be more.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, significantly more. And off the top of my head, I couldn't remember what is Sawyer. I mean, essentially Sawyer is the ice, whatever,
300 feet
yeah,
plus
yeah,
185.
yeah. So it's the size of the ring plus some locker room, so,
That's fantastic.
and then, go ahead.
It'd be interesting to know the comparisons between those, so that'd be a good thing to know.
Yeah,
Not just the big picture, but how much ice, how much space, how many offices, or, yeah.
And I also do think that people, I keep bringing up my own experiences because I've been in these spaces, admittedly not Sawyer Arena as much because I've been to like a hockey game or two. I don't have hockey kids. But to have I think part of if we're selling this to the community is to do a walkthrough and do a side by side. And even if you had a parent perspective, I'm here to pick up my kid from aftercare and you're dodging cars in the parking lot and the kids walking from the building to the playground, and just you're doing good with what you have, but the age and condition of the building, and just to kind of highlight what, we talk about the fly-throughs of the new building, can't fly really through that, but just even a walkthrough of, here's what it's like now, here's that condensed gig room, we're switching it over, now it has 10 tables, now it doesn't, now it's childcare, now it's dancing, now it's, I think that might be a good PR move to talk about what you have, and people might not be using it because of the condition of the building. So the walking in that tight little circle in that little gym, instead of having this big open track, I think that would be a valuable perspective for people who don't quite understand what our facilities are
We
now.
do have a mini drone that does virtual tours. That's like you're a little person on the drone and it goes through each room and gives a pretty.
Or do the dollhouse, like one of those 360 tours of, but just for people who are unsure to understand what the difference is, because I can look at this as a person who's used facilities and be blown away and know the difference. But if you never went, you might say, what do we need to change? What do we need?
Yeah, no, it's gonna look pretty impressive, especially right across the road from Hudson.
Yes.
He's focused over there.
Any questions on this?
Yeah, no, here we are, just a significant different perspective, coming in the driveway. It will be impressive for the city. And again, it's in a space that I think will just grow the entire part of the city out there. And again, connecting to Hudson, there's a whole other opportunity there that will be good for the community and good for everybody.
Christian, I have a question.
Yeah.
So we do get a fair amount of snow, some years more than others. So the buildings with the black roof, looks like they're dropping down on the, and I'm sure there's a, you know, there's a slope on those other buildings with the gray. How is that gonna work for snow load and snow dumping onto them and then the water runoff?
So I don't have a great answer as far as detail for it today. These are concepts that we're starting with.
Okay.
I'm gonna defer to the guy that might know more about it than I am. And to answer your question as best I can today, that will be all part of when we get to that stage of design,
Yeah.
drawings, engineering, and that sort of thing. Would be my answer to it, and I'm looking, that would be typical of the process.
So we wouldn't bring back and homage the V-shaped roof of the old auditorium. As a tribute to our history of bad roofs.
I've been known to have to put a bucket out sometimes at Sawyer Arena.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of flat roofs here.
yeah.
I mean, you know, there has to be. When you look at that area
Yeah.
over on the left-hand side, that's showing a flat roof and
Yeah.
you know, there's gonna be a lot of flat
Yeah.
roofs.
I never did understand that design,
Yeah,
the flat roof, because if you look at some of the old schools that were built, they're
Yeah.
still in existence and they've been turned over multiple times. You know, they have a
Yeah.
12 pitch, it
there's
just
a,
seems to work.
yeah. There's a lot of flat, I mean,
There are a lot of.
there, and there's a lot of old schools. I mean, you know, Mary Snow, I
Yeah.
mean, there's a ton of
Yeah, 14,
buildings that are
Fairmount,
14 that
Dowdy.
are all
all like
flat
those schools.
roofs.
Yeah.
We have a flat roof now.
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
We have a flat roof now. It pitches, there is a pitch to it to the back,
Has to be.
that then runs off through a gutter
Yeah.
system to the
Yeah.
ground.
I'm just not a flat roof kind of.
Yeah, no, I get it. Conversely, most of our building now is pitched. A significant portion of the building is pitched now, shingled roof. And it runs off to the edge, the drip edge. Part of it gets captured on the flat roof, which then runs to the ground, and the flat roof is a pitch to it, so. Yeah, these are certainly, as we've talked about a lot of times, already, we're at that conceptual rendering stage. And the next stage would be
Now,
to,
this is good.
yeah, no,
This is good.
the fly-throughs would be additional, but I think the point about what we're doing now.
Yeah.
This
we
is,
can
this is
come up with
awesome,
some
because
sort
you
of-
can see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, there'll be, you know, if this gets approved, there'll be changes. to this.
Absolutely.
And I know since we've actually added, you know, number 8
Right.
to 6, I've already want to change the childcare area
Yeah.
some, but there's no reason to do it right
Right.
now,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
let's just.
That's great.
Yeah,
so, I'm glad Katie's over here, so currently on our Parks and Rec page on the city website, under facilities, Katie, our studies and plans, and the feasibility study is on it, so going forward, and we can send you out a link to access that. What you have here in front of you will be on there.
Great.
The meeting materials that we presented thus far will be on there. The next step from this, that Barry Dunn is working on now, are the pro formas and the estimates. They have mentioned that if you folks think it would be beneficial, they'd be willing to come on with you. Maybe that's the time we do that once they've done the estimates, that if you have direct questions versus layering through us, you can ask them directly if you think that would be beneficial.
Cool.
Having them join us. And we can work that out. The other piece we want to talk to, so they couldn't go much further with their pro formas until we at least introduce some sort of a fee schedule, so we put that together. It's fairly basic as far as charges for some different items. We did discern between resident and non-resident. The membership piece, you'll see there in front of you. And that was essentially a comparison, and it's hard to compare, we use fitness as an example, hard to necessarily do an apples to apples comparison here locally. Currently you have a handful of private providers and the Y. So we tried to balance that. We found that from Barry Dunn's perspective, we were generally on track. And this will go into what they feel like will generate in revenue to offset the cost of operating the facility.
if you guys look at it, it's basically 20% for the non-resident. I mean, we didn't want to put cents in there, so it's between like 19 and 21%. For the non-resident fees.
I love that you have a young adult option.
Yeah.
I think that that's really valuable for people who are just getting started and, you know, dealing with the costs of
Yeah.
being an adult for the first time. I think that's really valuable. The one, you know, and I like the fees. I like that it's free for the walking track. Honestly, I think one thing I might do is even make walking track available free to non-residents, is have it be the gateway. You can come in for free. If you want anything else?
Hope to reel them in, yeah,
But
that's a
just,
good idea.
that's, but it's a situation that I think is valuable to our community, even beyond Bangor. So I feel like the $2, I don't know, I feel like it'd be worth it to say, no, it's free for everyone. You can walk.
And I see the point, I think maybe free to a period of time, because there'll be people who abuse the free, but maybe free for a certain period of time, because $2 is almost free.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's why we want to just kind of put on the table for you all to look at,
And this doesn't need to be installed
Yeah,
really
yeah,
right
yeah,
now,
right,
it's just,
yeah.
yeah, this
Or-
is just for them to be able to create their,
Do
Yeah, you'll
childcare,
fine tune this for
Oh,
sure,
yeah.
yeah.
do childcare, how does childcare work into this? Like,
yeah, right now, the childcare section of it is basically moving from one to the other. There's really not gonna be any change. The capacity that we can put in is the capacity that we have now. And then the fees is what we do now.
but not the fees for childcare, but like if a kid who, like, if you have
Yeah.
a group of childcare, and do they have to pay an extra fee to, if you're going to the indoor playground or something, would that just be?
You know, good question. We haven't thought of that yet. Because that's a separate program.
Yeah.
Cause like these fees are for general, like you wanna go and shoot hoops, you wanna go to ice skate, you know, free skate, walk the track, go shoot basketball, go play open gym pickleball. All that is these feel, and the fitness, that's for these. But if you wanna sign up for youth basketball program, that's separate.
And
Any
I
different
think that,
programs.
and just, this is again, in that you start narrowing things down, having the option for get your kid from childcare to their rec basketball league by having them walk down the hall and not trying to figure out who's gonna pick them up at 3:30 and get them there by 4 would be also another valuable thing.
We'll be able to do
So-
that.
So I think that's great.
So another thing we'll have to look at, some of the, like Planet Fitness, for example, it's like $10 a month. So that's something, we talked about the young adults, that's something to look at too. So if our prices are within some of those other fitness type ranges.
We did look at that, and again, Planet Fitness was one of them, it's a
Yeah.
different, their model's a whole different concept.
I know it's totally different.
Yeah.
And
Price range to entice people to come in, and then they say, oh, you have more than this, you have a phone case, so.
what we try to balance is the age-old, discussion about, and I don't want to use the word compete, but, and we're not, it will certainly benefit them. Planet Fitness has a model.
Right.
There is Goals that has a model, there is Bangor Athletic Club that has a model. Yeah, the Y we looked at, and generally speaking, we're within what the Y is doing for a model. Nationwide, we looked at a couple of other departments around the country, with the same kinds of concepts that we're talking about, and we're in that same, and they're larger communities that have multitude of options. Ultimately, here in this area, there are a handful of options. This will certainly enhance the opportunities and improve the opportunities that people have here in the community for fitness and well-being. So I generally speaking, we took all that into consideration, looked at Planet Fitness, looked at some of the other private providers as well as the Y. And again, there's really only a handful.
Yeah. And this, you can walk in, you know, with that anytime you want, anytime, you know, 6 in the morning to 11 at night, you can go. Basically, if it's not a planned program, you can basically go and have the rounds.
I think it looks pretty, and I think probably the biggest competitor for, here would be the Y. But again, I feel like the Y might be, if I have a kid on the swim team, maybe I do the Y because I'd have access to the pools. And if we've got a kid who's playing hockey, I'm gonna want to be more at Bangor Parks and Rec because of that hockey access. And then there'll be overlap with basketball and things like that, but when you're talking about what families are gonna use it, I really feel like there's, I don't feel like these two facilities are too much for Bangor. If anything, I think it's a great, economic development plan. When you have facilities like that, people wanna live here more, when you have good places for people to go.
So, go ahead.
I was just gonna add to the hockey. It's difficult for us to host good-sized tournaments. Or even John Bass has done a preseason tournament for 15 years and it's
Yeah.
grown. They're at the point now where we can't handle everything at Sawyer with just the one ice sheet.
Yeah.
So there's a whole thing out there now with 3 gyms, AAU basketball or the youth tournaments and leagues and things like that. So there's just a myriad of opportunities, as you say, economic development, and we could keep potentially that money in-house, host our own tournament
Yeah.
type stuff.
Yeah.
So now those are
And those-
kind of,
Yeah, and those kids that are in the tournament, they don't have to pay the drop-in fee, because they're in a program.
Right.
But the parent and the little sibling, oh, you want the little sibling to go to the, indoor playground, that's gonna cost, for the little sibling to go the drop-in, what did it just?
Like $8 or whatever.
$5 for
Yeah.
the child.
Yeah.
And there are.
And those kids that get dragged along to their
Yes.
siblings tournaments are not exactly often, not exactly always the biggest fans of their older siblings'
Yeah. So it
sports
draws
career.
people in, and then it gets them to do
Yeah.
other things that are gonna be in here. So having a variety is really gonna have a lot of families come on in.
So the only thing I'd ask today, so nothing in anything you've seen today, other than what we've talked about, makes you think about this. I mean, we're on the right track still. As we've talked about last time, we'll need to start working on that report. So what we've done thus far, reviewed the study, we've incorporated fitness, felt that was important, seen the renderings, concepts and the direction with concepts and the needs of the community. We're on the right track. We'll start to incorporate those thoughts and dialogue in what you'll need to look at as a draft report. Are we on the right track thus far? There's been no any concerns that we've had about potential conflict with other providers, specifically what the Y project we have discussed, and the consensus of the group seems to be it is not a concern. One will complement the other. So we'll need to start doing the outline for that report that you all will need to do. And I think we talked about last time that we're willing to start to draft that for you, but we'll need to start doing that. So I didn't want to leave today without knowing what we need to start thinking about.
Have you done a direct outreach to the Y? Have you sat down with Diane or any of the folks and said, this is what we're thinking about doing? I only bring that up because the last thing on earth we want to do is come out with this and then have objections come out at that point. It would not be a good.
Happy to do that, have not. We sat down early on in their process as we were doing this. So there's not a lack of awareness of each other. But certainly I think it would be at the very least to say, hey, here's what we're doing, here's what you're doing. This is gonna be great for the community.
Yeah, I think there needs to
That's
be
good
some
enough.
dialogue before we come out,
Yeah, for
full
sure.
force to the public, or we could have this, and
Yeah.
that's the last thing on earth we want.
No, I agree. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
For sure, it's a good idea. We'll work that out with them.
And so looking at this, to be, clear, looking at the numbers, I know they would alter a little bit as we go further, but this is the numbers they're gonna start with, to do their, their evaluation that's gonna come in a couple of weeks. But just to kind of show you where we were at on this, we want to make it enticing for families and stuff. So if you see an adult individual at 38, but then you think a family up to 5 is only 80. So what we're trying to do is get families to be in there. So just so you know, basically it's 2 adult pricing and all your 3 children are free, so that's kind of the direction that we wanted to take, to get more people in there.
So does a motion need to be made to accept everything we've done so far.
I don't think y'all need that. I mean, this is,
We could do a thumbs up just as
Yeah,
an
yeah.
unofficial, just so that we're on record. So if everybody is good with moving forward with the report and want to give a thumbs up,
we'll take that.
then we're good.
Got two
Two
thumbs up.
thumbs up, yes.
That's all we had for you today. So for the next meeting, we'll work it out with Barry Dunn's team to be on here with you. We'll start drafting that, scheduling with the Y is a good idea. And maybe there's a way we can, there is always a way we can work together with them. So, this was good direction today. I think we're good.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you all for.
Thank you all.